Okay, so hello and welcome. My name is Katie Tremulis, and today I have Jovanni here. He is a personal injury attorney. So if I can have you go ahead and introduce yourself and how long you've been a lawyer.
Hey, how you doing? So yeah, I'm Jovanni Fiallo. I go by Jovi as well, and depending on who knows me. I've been practicing now a little over 9 years, going on 10 years.
Perfect. And so what made you become a lawyer and get into your specific practice?
So interesting story about becoming a lawyer. I've always had two passions in life, baseball and the law. Baseball didn't work out, and they kind of I'll save you all the details, but it kind of intertwined on how this all worked out. Baseball stopped happening, got in a little bit of trouble, ended up actually getting arrested. Yeah, I come from a very, very, very strong Cuban Italian family. So my parents wanted to set an example and kind of leave me in there when I got arrested for the 8 hours I was in there. So I had a friend actually bail me out. And at that time, I didn't have any really any money, right? So I
Yeah.
couldn't really afford an attorney.
Mhm.
So what I did is I would go to different defense attorneys and get free consultations and learn what they would do.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going to the law library, studying, learning what they did, prepared all
Mhm.
my motions, filed my motions, my witness list, had a little short trial and ended up winning. So
Oh.
after, yeah, I represented myself and I ended up winning. And after that, I was like, you know what? I think the law's for me. Everything works out. Everything happens for a reason. And I think that's what led me to the law. And then for personal injury, I like personal injury for a lot of reasons. I do have a personal reason as to why I got specifically into personal reason with a very close family member who suffered a personal injury. And I saw firsthand what it did to that family member and what it did to my family and how hard life was for that family member as they tried to get better.
Mhm.
And so I always knew that I wanted to do for people what that attorney did for my family. And it was amazing. He felt like he was a part of the family.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it just really, really made me decide that this is the route I want to go. And then also, I really like the contingency fee basis of it, not for the big percentages or the big money that everybody thinks personal injury attorneys make, but
Mhm.
more so, I like the fact that clients don't have to pay up front for an attorney and that we cover all the costs up front. And if we don't make a recovery, then they don't pay us. And why do I like that? I like that because it allows access to lawyers for people who otherwise wouldn't have access if they didn't have the funds.
Mhm.
Right. So those are kind of the reasons why. And truthfully, I just like helping people and I like trying to, as cliche as it sounds, try to make the world a better, safer place.
So I kind of already know the answer because I've had an issue with my car getting into an accident. But for those of us that are watching, what would be the parameters that someone would be able to contact a personal injury attorney and start working with them?
Well, I mean, you can contact a personal injury attorney, right away after a crash if you want
Mhm.
to. But insurance companies, defense attorneys, they like to ask that question. When did you first hire an attorney, right? So they actually try to use that against you. But the way I look at it is when you get in a crash and whether it's you need help with property damage or you're not feeling okay, you're hurt, or you just don't know what to do, call an attorney, call
Yeah.
a personal injury attorney. For instance, you can call me and I will give you advice. I will tell you, hey, these are the steps you should probably take, or look at this, look at that. But there's really no wrong time to call a personal injury attorney unless you wait too long, right? You obviously, I wouldn't suggest anybody speaking to an insurance company prior to speaking to an attorney or retaining an attorney.
At least in my aspect of what happened with me, I got rear-ended, and their insurance kept trying to talk to me, and I didn't really know. I didn't talk to them, but yeah, so both sides insurance might not necessarily be looking out for you as much as what a personal injury attorney would do. So for those of us watching, it is super helpful to reach out and get a consultation. So in general, you have recently made a little bit of a change into solo practice. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then some of the challenges or something that, about solo practice.
Well, yeah, so I recently decided to go out on my own. I was a managing attorney for a big statewide law firm, kind of helped build up the Tampa office from the ground floor, from the ground up. And I just started realizing that in order for me personally to be an effective lawyer the way I want to be, I
Hmm.
needed to be able to do things my way,
Yeah.
right? And there's so many different ways, so many different styles, so many different things you can do as an attorney. You don't have to do everything the same way to get the same result, right? You can do things
Mhm.
differently to get the same result. And I just felt that for me personally, being able to be more selective on the clientele that I bring in,
Mhm.
the cases that I want to take, for instance, if I meet with a client and I don't believe them to be genuine, or I just, for whatever reason, we just don't get along, then I don't want to take the case.
Yeah.
And working for someone else and working for another firm, you're kind of handcuffed, right? Because you have to take the cases that are assigned to you and you have to work them up. And as a litigation attorney, because I was doing just purely litigation and trial work,
Mhm.
uh, most of the time the cases are worked up already before you get them, right? And sometimes, most of the time, they're worked up great, but there are other times that you look at a case and you're like, well, I would have done this differently, or I would have done that differently. And so I just kind of realized that for me, in order again to be effective and represent the clients the best way that I believe I can do, I just needed to be able to do it on my own. And I
Okay.
needed to be able to be more selective on my clientele. And I'm a little unorthodox. I like to think outside the box. I like to swing for the fences sometimes.
Mhm.
A lot of people refer to me as kind of like a cowboy sometimes, but it works and it's just my style. And I just feel like, in order for me to really be able to do the things that I feel I need to do, I
Mhm.
just I can't be micromanaged. I can't have, run things up a chain of command or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because sometimes if you're the one that is the business owner, it's a lot easier to make decisions. You don't really have to have anyone checking up and making sure that,
I would say some of the early on challenges is obviously just getting your firm started, right? Going through all the administrative stuff and building your brand, building your website, learning what you need to do to market this and that to bring in clients. Fortunately, I am from Tampa originally, born and raised,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of people, and I also lived throughout the state, so I know. And I played baseball, I went to college, and all that, and I know a lot of people. So
Yeah.
for me, it's bringing in the clientele is really not one of my issues. It's more
Mhm.
so how do I convince a client to come with me, a solo practitioner, as opposed to one of the big firms that they're seeing all over the place.
Mhm.
And that answer is, I think, probably an answer that a lot of practitioners would give is that when you're a smaller firm, right? And again, I'm smaller because I'm just starting off. The sky's
Mhm.
the limit for me,
Yeah.
but clients are not just a number, right?
Mhm.
It's hard for me to be able to fully know my client, to be able to represent them in the way I want to represent them when I am overwhelmed with a ginormous caseload,
Mhm.
right? Oftentimes a client's calling and I'm trying to dig through the file to figure out what's going on, right? If anything. And why that's kind of the challenges of explaining like to a client, hey, you should come with me as opposed to them. But
Yeah.
kind of to balance that out is I like to tell everyone I've done it all. I've done small boutique firms. I've worked for the big firms, and now I decided to go out on my own and do it in a smaller boutique style
Mhm.
because I like to be, in another sense, more intimate with my client, knowing who they are, knowing them, being part of their family. Because as a trial lawyer, right, how can I go and explain to a jury who my client is, what their case is about, and what their injuries have done to them if I don't even know who my client is,
Mhm.
right? And if I don't know their story. Because contrary to popular belief, every case is different, right? There may be everyone rear ends are the same or T-bones are the same, maybe, right? But every case is different. Every person is different. Every person is unique. Every story is unique. So in order for me to be able to explain that to a jury, I would prefer to have the smaller caseload where I can really focus on my clients and get to know them and their family and the ins and outs of what's going on with them.
Switching gears a little bit, as far as the documents that you find in your work, you said that you do litigation, but then also there is a certain amount of like foundational groundwork. What are the typical documents that you see that do need notarized within the life cycle of one of your cases?
Well, obviously, you're going to have your affidavits early on. There's also HIPAA forms that some doctors require them to be notarized, some doctors don't. You've got your proof of loss that needs to be notarized. That's kind of like in the early on. And then, obviously, in the litigation standpoint, you've got interrogatories, which are just questions to be answered under oath, right?
Mhm.
So that's got to be notarized. in the event a case gets settled, right? A release agreement sometimes needs to be notarized, settlement agreement needs to be notarized. Um, those are kind of certain things as far as notaries would come into play in the personal injury side.
And so the next question is have you already, and this is fine, but have you already used a remote online notary, or would that, like, when you start using a remote online notary, would that be your first encounter?
This would actually be my first encounter using an online remote notary, which again, I think is fantastic, right? Makes things so much easier. Clients don't have to go all over the place and don't have to come to the office to sign paperwork.
Yes. And so in my industry, everybody thinks that when you are marketing and going out and talking to lawyers, they think that it's going to be saturated. Have you ever been aside from me, have you ever been marketed to by a notary or even a remote online notary?
I've not actually. I have not. You were the first that I've actually ever. Yeah, I've heard of them before, but I've never
Yeah.
been, marketed or spoken to one before. You are the first.
Okay. Good. Yeah, that's the usual answer is that in my world, they're like, no, no, I'm not going to go to a law firm. Like they already, have notaries. And I'm like, yeah, but we add a different type of value as a remote notary. And they're not always, this is a new field. Like people don't really know even what it is. So
It's all about convenience too,
yeah.
right? Most clients, right, they don't have the luxury to just stop working, right?
Mhm.
So they get hurt, they still have to go to work, they have families, they have obligations they have to attend to. So the less that I can bother a client, right, or inconvenience them, the better, right? So if I need something notarized and I can use an online notary, then I'm going to do that because it's more convenient for the client.
Mhm.
Because that's the name of the game. And I think a lot of attorneys forget about that is that, yeah, we're the lawyers, right? But we work for the client, right? So anything I can do to make their lives easier, I'm going to do that.
This was before this personal injury attorney knew about me, but I once had someone that was complaining to me because the personal injury lawyer knew that that person had just broken their leg and still had them go into the office to go ahead and get something notarized. I'm like, they might not have known, but clients do appreciate that as an option. And sometimes, like, even if the firm doesn't take on that billing, just as a explanation that this is something that is available, um, adds value to the actual law firm itself. So another thing that I wanted to go into is something that I'm not sure about, but if you only like, do you only do personal injury as for your law firm?
Yeah, so my firm is a personal injury law firm, which means we handle, car crashes, truck crashes, slip and fall, trip and fall, medical malpractice, product liability, everything that falls under the personal injury or the negligence standpoint. Now, there have been times that I have helped, with family matters or, helped a friend here out, some criminal stuff, but typically I don't take those cases on. I do strictly personal injury because I just feel like if you're going to be good at something, then focus on that and be
Yeah.
really, really good at that. And again, one of my biggest things that I don't really say specialize in because I think Florida Bar, we're not really allowed to say specialized unless you are board certified, which I'm working on,
Okay.
um, is the semi trucks and the commercial cases. I would probably, and I don't want to upset anybody when I say this, but I don't think there are a lot of attorneys in Florida that have the knowledge that I have when it comes to these truck crashes and these semi truck crashes. I mean,
Hmm.
I will wake up in the middle of the night and pull out the federal regulations and read them, right? And I will watch every seminar, read every book on semi truck crashes. I mean,
Hmm.
you can see behind me, these are just a sample of books that I have that I'm always reading because I
Hmm.
always feel like I want to be the best version of myself for my clients at all times, even in my own life, right? But if we stop learning, we stop growing. So
Yeah.
I'm always reading, I'm always trying to learn. And sometimes I'll read a book and I don't get anything out of it, or maybe I get one thing out of it. But to me, it's worth it, right? Because what am I doing? I'm trying to be the best version of myself for my clients. That way, when it comes to trial, I'm ready to go. Maybe I want to use this strategy. Maybe I want to use that strategy. Or, hey, I read this in a book and he just did this. Now I'm going to do that, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do to, be good. And for me, it's specializing in just one thing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because sometimes I'll talk to lawyers and then they'll be like, I do this and this and this and this. And so sometimes it's hard for me to market to them because I'm like, all right, there's a lot of different things going on here that I could start marketing to you about, but
Mhm.
personal injury is a little bit easier if it's just one. Like I know that. So yeah. Do you have a book that you would recommend for like a business owner or someone that what's your favorite thing that you've just recently read? That doesn't have
Well,
to
I'm
be
actually,
that doesn't
I
have
was
to
gonna
be
say I'm
my
actually reading a
trust.
book right now. I'm
Okay.
actually reading this book right now. It's called The Domino Theory.
Okay.
And it's just another trial strategy book that talks about, using dominoes and the kind of it's weird how he explains it, but I'm gonna do my best.
Okay.
So it talks about lining up these dominoes, and basically each domino represents, a portion of your case, causation, whatever it is, right? And why does he do it? Because think of yourself as a kid or you're sitting in the jury, you want those dominoes to fall, right?
Yeah.
You're watching it and they're standing up, and you're like, okay, when's he gonna knock these down?
Hmm.
And so as you start to knock them down through your case, and I should probably apologize to the author because I'm probably doing a terrible job of explaining it. But as you're knocking these down, the jury is inherently rooting for you,
Hmm.
right? They're watching you knock this down in the back of their minds. They're like, yeah, he
Yeah.
did it, right? It's just little tips and tricks that you need to learn and do as a trial lawyer. Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, yes, you're going in there and you're putting on the best show you can for your client, but it is a show.
Yeah.
You want a jury to like you. You want a jury to like your client. There's a book I read and I can't remember, but um, a lot of lawyers will even take like acting classes or read
Hmm.
books on acting. And I've done that before. And
Yeah.
it's not to say that you are putting on a fake show or facade for the jury. You're
Hmm.
just approaching the case in a way to help you be more likable, right?
Yeah.
And to help you articulate more and do what you have to do to be likable, because whatever you can do for the jury to like you and like your client, then most of the time you're going to have a positive result. That's not to
Hmm.
say you're going to win them all, right? Because any good trial lawyer is going to tell you you might lose more cases than you win if you try enough. But
Hmm.
the wins are fun. They really
Yeah.
are. The losses hurt. They do. But I could go on and on about the books. I have that's the one I'm currently reading now, but I have a bunch that, I'm always recommending to young lawyers. And I actually recently had lunch with a lawyer last week and sent him a bunch of books that I think he should read. Just because I think that again, knowledge is power, right? And the more
Yeah.
you know, the better you are.
I agree because I remember like graduating college and I was like, that's it. That's it. No more learning. And then I started going into business and then I started learning, like the huge faults of like, okay, I'm not that good at sales. And then it's like, okay, now I have to learn this whole entire thing. And then learning more, like I swear it's like self-development on steroids where you have to get better so that way you can do a better job for your clients. And I hear that echoed in what you are also saying. So I agree with you as far as, building yourself so that you're better for your clients. So, okay. And then my last question, and this is just because this is something that I have been starting out doing to partner with different law firms. Do you have a specific software that you've started to use for your law firm to keep everything on track?
I'm using or going to be using Filevine. It's actually
Okay.
it's a software that a client management software that I was introduced to at my last firm that I actually really liked. And I've used a bunch of different ones in the past, client
Hmm.
profiles and whatnot. But I just felt Filevine was just very easy,
Okay.
easy to use, and it's cloud based. So, helps when you want to work from home, right? When you don't want to go into the office that day, or when you're in a trial and you
Hmm.
need to pull something up, you don't have to remote log into a server and go through all these steps of getting authentication, this and that, right? You
Hmm.
just log into your computer,
And then it's
pull out
right.
what you need because it's cloud based. So I would, there's a lot of good softwares out there for people to use, but I would highly recommend using Filevine.
And then for anyone that is looking for advice on starting their own solo firm, do you have any like nugget of gold as far as like what to expect or how to start as a solo practitioner? Is it called
Okay.
solo practitioner?
Well, no, it's yeah, because right now I am a solo practitioner because it's
Okay.
it's my firm, so it's like it's a law office of Jovanni C. Fiallo, and I also go by JCF Injury Law.
Okay.
Um, I am going to be bringing on more attorneys to work under me
Mhm.
as we grow on. But the advice that I would give to anybody thinking about starting their own practice, whether it's personal injury, criminal, whatever it is, really the only advice I have is do it,
Yeah.
right? If you can do it, if you're worried about finances, you can try and get a business loan, right? There's different ways, or you can try and find funding, this and that. If it's about marketing, well, then learn to market, right? If you wait and wait and wait, next thing you know, you're going to be 85 years old, stuck in another firm in the back office, dying back there, right? And you're always going to be full of regrets, like, why didn't I start my own firm? The one thing I say now that I've started my own firm is, man, I wish I would have done this sooner,
Hmm.
right? Because there's nothing like working for yourself.
Yes.
It really is, because at the end of the day, I'm working 80 plus, 80 hours a week for another firm, helping them grow and this and that, when I could be doing that for myself and for my clients, right? So, are there going to be ups and downs in starting your own firm? Yes, right? There's no such thing as, and maybe there is. Maybe people started their own firm and never hit a roadblock in their life. That's awesome. Kudos to them, right? But
Yeah.
for the rest of us, you are going to hit the roadblocks. You are going to be down on yourself. You're going to doubt yourself. You just got to keep pushing forward. You just got to do it. Because if you truly believe you're meant to do something and you want to start your own firm, you wouldn't have that thought in the back of your head if you weren't meant to do it. So just do it. There's no right time. Just go out and do it.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and spending time with me. So, if I could, how do people contact you to reach out to you if they want to use you as your personal injury attorney or just get some really good book recommendations? How do people find you?
I like to give out my personal side to everybody. I get, whether it's a client, my family. I always tell everybody, you've got the bat line, right? So it's the same phone number that my wife calls to yell at me at sometimes, right? So I tell everyone 813-842-3361. That's my personal cell. You can call me, text me anytime. I'm pretty much always available, which my wife hates when I say that, but I am, right? Because that's what I love what I do, Katie.
Mhm.
I really do, and you know. I try not to make sure I don't burn myself out, but I like to always make sure I'm available for my clients because, again, I saw firsthand what clients need. And sometimes in the middle of the night, something comes up and they need their lawyer, right? And I
Mhm.
want to be there for them. So, if anyone's interested in a consultation or want to grab lunch and learn about going out on your own or just being an attorney or, again, book recommendations, please give me a call. I am working on my website right now. If people go to it, I'll tell them it's kind of just a shell of what it's going to be. I've
Mhm.
recently hired a marketing and advertising firm that's going to be handling my social media and my website and my logo and brand and all that. So right now we're working all that.
Okay.
But the website is jcfinjurylaw.com. And again, the firm name is the Law Offices of Jovanni C. Fiallo. Again, JCF Injury Law. And I look forward to being able to help the Tampa Bay area and also statewide. So
Mhm.
I'm really looking forward to this opportunity that I have now to go out and do things on my own and do them my way.
Well, I'm very excited to see your journey and I appreciate it. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.